Good afternoon to all. Hope you all are safe and doing well. I would like to thank each one of you for taking out time and joining us for today's webinar. I, Dr. Payal Sharma, on behalf of Department of Commerce and Management, Medicaps University, extend a warm welcome to all. Medicaps, a name that has been the pride and a brand in the arena of technical education since its inception, consistently aims at creating an ideal atmosphere for budding technocrats and managers. Meanwhile, pushing them to grow like true professionals. Opportunity does not wait for preparation. In fact, it comes only to prepared ones. For preparing and familiarizing students with opportunities abroad and how to grab them successfully, this webinar is a perfect occasion for discussing the Unleashing Opportunities Study Abroad for Newbies. To answer these questions, we could not have asked for a better dignitary than Mr. Shreyas Ramkrishnan. I would also like to welcome our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Dr. Dr. Patnaik sir, Dean Commerce and Management, Dr. Harish Bapat sir, HOD Management, Mukesh Porwal sir, Mr. Haldar Sharma sir, HOD Commerce, our senior faculty, Dr. Sunil Mishra sir, and all respective deans, HODs, faculty colleagues, and dear students. Before we commence, let me explain how we will proceed for the guest lecture. Initially, I will invite our guest lecturer, Mr. Shreyas Ramkrishnan, and if you all have any query during this session, we will have question and answer session at the end. We will share the link for feedback during the session on Zoom chat. Kindly fill the feedback form and you will get e-certificates via your respective mail IDs. It is with great feeling of pride I welcome Mr. Shreyas Ramkrishnan sir, Head Zambori Education. He is an instructor and mentor for over a decade in abroad education. He has taught over 5,000 students across Chennai, Bangalore, and Pune. He is a professional with an MBA in Strategy and Operations from the Ohio State University class of 13. He has obtained the degree from the Max M. Fisher College of Business. He was also the University Fellowship recipient with GMAT 98 percentile. It is our honor to have you here, sir. Now, without further delay, I would like to invite Mr. Shreyas Ramkrishnan sir for sharing his views on today's topic. Sir, please.
Yep. Thank you for the kind words, madam. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, students. Good morning, Dr. Syed. I hope all of you can hear me. So can I get a quick confirmation in the chat box that everyone can hear me? Will be yes. Will be very helpful. Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Raj. Thank you, Shivam. Thank you, Anjali. Ashish, Ravindra, Ashish. Good. So thank you everyone for taking time off your busy schedule. So it's nice to be here, join you this morning. So as you know, the agenda is to provide information because especially while in college, it's absolutely imperative that you get the right information, because in today's day and age, you get pounded by so much information, right? On Quora, on Google, etc. So it's very important to make the right decision. And to make the right decision, first of all, you take a step back. You need to know what options you have. So that's very, very, very important. So what we're going to do is, so I'll try to keep this presentation short. So maybe 30-45 minutes. And as was stated earlier, we will have a Q&A session at the end. I'll stay back. So if you have any questions, feel free to, type away. I'll be very, very happy to, take all your questions at the end of the session. So in the meantime, if you have any questions, please make note of it. We'll have a Q&A session at the end. Okay. Thank you very much. So let's quickly move ahead. So what is the agenda? So we're going to look at study abroad options. How to choose the right program, which is probably the single most important thing. And obviously entry requirements and admissions criteria. What universities look in prospective applicants, students, application requirements, and finally, very important, scholarship opportunities, right? So we're going to look at this entire gamut in the next 30 to 45 minutes. So we'll start with a quick, it's a statement. So where is more important than what? And I'll give you the context. Just keep this in mind. So where is more important than what? So, we'll discuss this, we discuss MBA and a couple of other things. So because this is an important point that keeps coming up. So in terms of countries, it's pretty straightforward. I'm pretty sure, almost all of you know where Indian students go. So obviously USA continues to be the #1 destination. Canada in the last 4 or 5 years has turned out to be an extremely attractive destination. India has always had this connection with UK. So we were colonized. We're a former British colony. And obviously rest of Europe like Germany, France, Spain, Italy, they are becoming increasingly popular, especially with the rise of the MIM programs, which is Masters in Management program. But again, Australia, New Zealand, relatively fewer students go, but nonetheless, these are legit study abroad options. We also have Hong Kong and Singapore because these are the 2 locations in Asia. Although Hong Kong is not being preferred in the last year or so because of all the pro-democratic riots and things happening with China, etc. So Singapore continues to be a very attractive option. So lots of Indians, and it's essentially a very disciplined version of India, right? So that's Singapore. Travel also doesn't take much time. So we have quite a few options. So there are about I would say there are about 10, 15 countries that Indian students go to when it comes to study abroad, right? Now, just a couple of things I just want to point out before moving to the next slide. So when you're applying to universities abroad, obviously they look at your overall profile. They look at your undergraduation performance also. Particularly, because I just want you to make note of this. Just give me 1 second, excuse me. Germany and Canada look heavily at your undergrad grades. So they look heavily. So if you're applying to Germany or Canada, so kindly ensure that your CGPA is slightly on the higher side. They don't look kindly toward backlogs and things like that. So it's having a good academic record is absolutely important for all universities across all countries, but got to be extra careful with Germany and Canada. So just something for you to keep in mind. Right. Now, in terms of course options, right? So we're going to look at 4 different streams. So we are going to look at our traditional MBA, which usually is the flagship program for most colleges, business schools. Then we have a non-traditional MBA, and I'll tell you what that means very soon. Then we have Masters in Management, also called MIM. And finally, we have specialized master's programs, right? So we're going to look at an array of options here. When we talk about a traditional MBA, I believe that the earliest MBA was offered by Harvard in the year 1912, if I'm right. So the MBA degree is more than like 100 years old. So you take any of the top business schools in the world, Harvard, Stanford, Wharton, London Business School, INSEAD, HEC Paris. Now, all these are like top schools that have extremely good MBA programs, which is their flagship program. So depending on the university, the duration of an MBA could vary anywhere from 10 months to 21 months. A 21-month program is usually we call it a 2-year MBA program. And there are a number of programs that are 1 year. Just a couple of them that are 10 months, which are like extremely intense. And we have every number in between. We have a 14-month program, 15-month program, 18-month program, 16-month program. So depending on which programs you go for. Right. Now, why do we call this a traditional MBA? So this is an important question. Because traditionally, you will have to work for at least 2 to 3 years, get work experience, and then apply to these MBA programs, right? So the class average, right? So the average age of those entering the program is about 5 to 6 years. And usually there is a requirement that, you need minimum 2 to 3 years of work experience, right? So that is kind of like an entry requirement. Minimum 2 to 3 years of work experience, but the class average is about, so people with like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, all these people submit applications for the traditional MBA program. Now, there is also, unlike our regular bachelor's or regular master's program, what makes an MBA different? So it's going to be extremely case study based. So there are business cases of Harvard Business School and other top schools. So you're going to be discussing, business cases and what happened in a certain case and what did the business do? What do you think the business should have done, etc., etc. It's extremely, case study based, and it's also very collaboration based. So, you're going to form teams. It's called a cohort. So you have small teams and you discuss, and there's a lot of analysis, brainstorming, back and forth, deliberations, etc. So that's what happens in a traditional MBA program. And again, so because these are the flagship programs, so these tend to be expensive on the high side. So for example, at Harvard Business School, it can go up to like 1.5, 1.8 crores, if you have to spend, all money by yourself, right? So with zero funding. So these programs tend to be expensive. Now I'm just giving you the highest. Now there are whole range of programs in, all different price points, but in general, MBA programs tend to be more expensive than masters and other programs. But obviously, because it's a flagship program, you have all the top recruiters coming, and the starting salaries and the bonuses are also pretty much on the high side, right? As I told you, there are a few examples here. In India, we have ISB. I'm sure you would have heard of ISB, Indian School of Business. That is LBS, London Business School. So Oxford, Cambridge put together, the name is Oxbridge. That is HBS, Harvard Business School, MIT, Stanford, INSEAD, again, one of the top programs. They have 2 campuses, one in Singapore and one in Fontainebleau, France. In fact, INSEAD is one of the schools that offers a 10-month program. So it's very intense, extremely intense. UPenn, University of Pennsylvania's business school is called Wharton, which is one of the top schools. Chicago, University of Chicago has Booth. Then there is Kellogg at Northwestern University. There is Yale. There is HEC Paris. There is Rotman, which is a business school of University of Toronto. Then there is Schulich. So, and in India, you have the IMABCs, which offer a 1-year program for people with at least 4 or 5 years of work ex. So they call it the executive MBA program. So this is for people with more work ex. And then you have NUS, Nanyang Technological University, NTU, and NUS is National University of Singapore. So these are some programs. There are like many, many more programs, but I'm just giving you a sample and a slight taste of what this, traditional MBA program is. Now comes the exciting option, which is a non-traditional MBA program. Now, first of all, why do we call it non-traditional? Because as I told you, an MBA degree is like more than like 100 years old. So that tradition has been there for quite a while. People work, get a few years of work ex, and then go for their MBA. But in the last like 5, 7, 8 years, probably, in the last like 10 years, let's say, that there has been a trend of students going for MBA programs right after undergraduation. So these programs are called the early entry MBA programs. So these are called the early entry. So you may want to make note of this. So these are called the early entry MBA programs. Okay. So there are also options for you to not work for 2 to 3 years and then go. You can also go directly. So when we talk about early entry MBA programs, there are 2 options. One is called a direct entry. The other is called a deferred entry. Deferred meaning delayed. Right? So what is the meaning of deferred? Deferred means delayed. Right? Now, what is the difference between a direct entry program and a deferred entry program? Now, first, let's look at the similarity. Now, what is common to both deferred entry program and delayed entry program? You need to apply for these early entry options while you are still in college. While you're still in your undergrad, you need to apply for these programs. So once you graduate, you will not have access to apply to these programs. So very important, be it the direct entry or the deferred entry option, you need to apply while you are still in college. Very important. Now comes the difference. What is the difference between a direct entry and a deferred entry? So direct entry program, so you apply while you are in college, you get an admit, you will start directly after your undergrad. And that's why it's called a direct entry. You start right after your undergrad. For example, you graduate in May of 2022, for example, you will start by August of 2022. So just a 2-month break. So you will directly start right after your undergrad. So that's the direct entry option. Now, then what is the deferred entry? As I already told you, deferred entry means delayed entry. Correct. So which means, again, you apply while you're still in college. You are made an offer, which means you get an admit, but then you work for 2 years and then you will do your MBA. So that's why it's called a deferred MBA or a delayed MBA. Right? So you apply while you're still in college, you get an admit, but you will work for 2 years and then start your MBA. So you will start after 2 years. And that's why it's called the deferred MBA. So again, please remember both MBAs, direct entry or deferred entry, you need to apply while you are still in college. And again, competition is really high. And again, whether you're going for a master's or an MBA, early entry, deferred entry, any program, if it's a good university, there is going to be competition. So you need to have an extremely good profile. And by profile, I don't just mean marks. We'll touch on it subsequently. Right. So here are some options. Let me just clear the screen. So here are some options. So for example, Harvard has an extremely popular 2+2 MBA program. So this is a delayed entry. So you apply while you're in college, you get an admission, you work for 2 years and then go for MBA. The same thing with ISB, YLP, Young Leaders Program. You apply while you're in college, you get an admit, and you work for a couple of years and then start. Now, on the contrary, the Yale, I'm sure you've heard of Yale. Yale is an Ivy League school. So Yale Silver Scholar. Now, this is a direct entry MBA program. So it's just a combination of direct entry and deferred entry program. So if you want to apply only for direct entry, you have options. If you want to apply for deferred entry, you have option. Or you want to apply for a combination of both, sure, there are options. So this is just a sample of the various early entry option programs. We have Kelly, we have IESC, which is one of the topmost schools in Spain, SMU, Cox. SMU stands for Southern Methodist University. Then there is University of California, San Diego. There is Bentley, that's Sunny Buffalo. And as I told you, Carnegie Mellon, CMU, and then Wharton. We saw this before. So there are like a whole bunch of top universities all across the world that provide this option. Now, so none of the Canadian schools were listed here. We had some American and some European. Now, what happens in Canada? Now, in Canada, there is something called MBA with co-op. Now, normally when you do an MBA, there is a summer internship. Now, what is a co-op? Now, co-op is nothing but an extended internship. Co-op is nothing but an extended internship. Now, usually what happens is in a normal MBA program, you have about 2 to 3 months of internship. But in a co-op program, you get to do an internship for anywhere from 6 to 12 months. Anywhere from 6 to 12 months. Now, why do they give this option? Because this program is targeted at those with little to no work experience. So because you don't have work experience, they give you a longer opportunity for you to do internships so that when you graduate, you are well prepared to take real roles in good companies across the world. Now, as I told you, this option is given in Canada. There is McMaster, there is Brock, there is Wilfrid Laurier, there is Victoria. So this option is very comparable to the early entry MBA programs of the other countries which we discussed. Very comparable. Now comes this program, MIM, which has been extremely popular for the last, a decade or so, right? So what is MIM? So MIM is Masters in Management, right? Now this is targeted at students who have 0 to 2 years of work experience. So it is directed toward a younger demographic, right? And one of the biggest, so why is there so much rush and so much demand for an MIM? Because it is more affordable than an MBA. So an MIM usually costs about 30 to 50% of what an MBA would cost. So MIM programs are a lot more pocket friendly in general, especially when you compare it to MBA programs. So they're a lot more affordable than your MBA programs. Now, so students ask, what is the difference between an MBA and an MIM? So the first point we saw, a traditional MBA, you need minimum 2 to 3 years of work ex, but MIM is for those with 0 to 2 years of work ex. So that's the first difference. What is the next difference? It is a lot more affordable than an MBA program. And finally, there is also a difference in recruitment. So the same recruiters will come, your Apple, Amazon, Facebook, McKinsey, Goldman Sachs, Credit Suisse, UBS, same recruiters. but you will get entry-level opportunities in these companies. So MBAs get placed at a slightly higher level. MIMs, because you don't have that 4 or 5 years of work ex. So MIMs usually get placed at slightly one level lower than what an MBA would be. MBA candidate will be placed. So that is the difference. Now, the biggest advantage is you get to go to another country early in your career, and you can build your future from ground up. So you start as a junior analyst or analyst. Let's talk about consulting, for example. Let's talk about management consulting. You have all these big companies, McKinsey, Bain, BCG, Deloitte. All these are like some of the big companies in the world. Now, so let's say you start as an analyst. Then you become, so from an analyst, you become an associate. Then you become a consultant, then senior consultant, right? Then you become a principal, then engagement manager, then you become a partner. So it gives you that opportunity to enter one of these top companies early in your career. So that's a big advantage. And MIM provides you. It's a very big advantage. Right? Again, some of the schools you've already seen, London Business School, London School of Economics. So as we had already seen LBS before, because LBS offers an MBA. They also offer an MIM. HEC Paris, we have again seen, they offer an MBA. They also offer an MIM. INSEAD, they offer an MBA. Remember, I told you they have two campuses, one in Fontainebleau, France, the other in Singapore. All right. So these are some of the UCD, TCD, a bunch of schools. All right. So the major differences. So what is the difference between? So let me just quickly summarize. What is the difference between MBA and MIM? The first one is WorkX, amount of WorkX that's required. What is the second one? Fees. And third, placement. So MIMs, as I told you, will get one level below. Now, remember, I just want to point out something extremely important. Where is more important than what, right? This point becomes very relevant here. So oftentimes students say, so, but an MBA is an MBA, all right? Now you got to understand, let's take an MBA and an MIM. Let's say you do an MBA from a very normal college, but let's say you have an MIM from London Business School. So which is going to have more value, right? So you shouldn't worry so much about the degree, but from where you get it becomes a lot more important. That becomes absolutely important. So please make note. So getting into a good school, again, whether it's an MBA or whether it's an MIM or whether it's a specialized master's, getting into a good brand supersedes everything else. It's a very important point. Now, so are these the only options? No. So there are a bunch of specialized options also available. For example, there are students who go for MS in finance. There are students who go for logistics management, supply chain management, operations management. There are students who go for management analytics. So there is a new program, by the way, called MMA, Masters in Management Analytics. That's again offered by London Business School, Queen's University in Canada, right? There is MIS, MS in IB, Masters in International Business. There is MS in Marketing. There is what we call HR in India is called Organizational Behavior. There is Innovation and Entrepreneurship, right? So there are these tons of specialized master programs. So kindly make note of it. So these are some of the options. So right after undergrad, so you can go for a direct entry or a deferred entry. There is MIM and a whole bunch of specialized master's program. So please make note. So it's very important for students. As students, you need to know the different options, because I'm pretty sure, a lot of you have interests in like different areas, and you want to branch out in different areas.
ये वाले पालक में बहुत बड़े-बड़े पत्ते, तोड़ दूं?
Right. So now let's look at the admissions criteria. So on what basis do they select students, right? So they look at your GMAT, or more recently, some of the schools have slowly started accepting GRE scores also. Now, in addition to this, you need to take the TOEFL or IELTS. They don't consider India an English-speaking country because our first language is not English. That's probably a Hindi or Marathi or Telugu or etc. etc. So for those purposes, students need to take the TOEFL or the IELTS. They definitely look at your academic record, or your UG grades, or your CGPA percentage. They look at your co-curricular activities. So co-curricular are things that are related to your curriculum. So projects, paper presentations, publications, internships, all those things that are related to your studies, right? All these come under co-curricular. Then extracurricular is music, dance, drama, sports. Hello. I request others to kindly mute. That'll be very helpful. Thank you. Yep, thank you. So extracurricular typically is music, dance, drama, sports, arts. So one of the important things is, these schools look at is community service, giving back to the society. So volunteering and other activities become very important. So we call it community impact. And you are supposed to provide LORs, letters of recommendation. And every university will have its own application. So you need to provide essays or SOPs. So what is SOP? SOP is, I'm sure you guys would have heard of this, statement of purpose. Statement of purpose, SOP. Why are you applying, etc., etc. And in some cases, you will have interviews. All right. So it will happen on Zoom. So they're going to ask you questions based on your profile. So this is the overall admissions criteria. So I'll leave it here. Kindly make note of this. Extremely important. So they select you not just based on your score. So that's a big difference between the Indian system and the Western system, because in India, everything is based on mark and cutoff. But here they look at your overall profile. They look at your overall profile. So not just your academic grades or your GMAT, GRE scores. The overall strength and quality of your application. So moving on. So let me move to the next slide. So this question keeps coming up. Should I take GMAT or GRE? Now, GRE traditionally has been used for engineering and other courses. So, and GMAT is, when GMAT stands for graduate management. So the M in GMAT stands for management. So anything very related to management, GMAT is the preferred exam, although they accept GRE also, but GMAT continues to be the preferred exam. So both are American exams, both are computer-based exams. Both exams are conducted throughout the year. So unlike the Indian exams like CAT, GATE, which is conducted once a year, GMAT is conducted throughout the year, right? So whenever you are ready, you can book a slot and you can take the exam. So GMAT is about 3.5 hours and GRE is very similar, 3 hours, 45 minutes. There are a combination of multiple choice and, multiple choice objective type questions. And also there is an essay where you need to type out your response. This is very similar in terms of structure. But again, one question students ask is, if I prepare for GMAT, can I write GRE? No. So GMAT requires its own dedicated preparation. GRE needs its own dedicated preparation. So there is another analytical writing assessment, IR, we call it IR, which is integrated reasoning, which is more like data interpretation. And then you have the quant and the verbal section. GRE has analytical writing assessment and then the quant and the verbal section. Although the format in which questions come are quite different. The maximum you can score in the GMAT is 800. The maximum you can score in GRE is sort of 340. So the scales are also different. And finally, very, very interesting and very important, both these exams are valid for 5 years. So unlike the Indian exams where you have to write it every year, these exams, you take it once, you are set for 5 years. So it's like getting your driver's license. So you get your driver's license, it's given for like 20 years, sometimes even 30 years. So these two exams, you don't have to write it every year. So once you take the exam and get a good score, now you can choose to go immediately. You can choose to go after 2-3 years of working also. Absolutely no problem. The score will still be valid because the scores are valid for 5 years. So it's a big, big advantage of either GMAT or GRE. So they give you 5-year score validity. Huge advantage. Now, what should I do? Right? What will be an ideal profile? Right? So as I told you, have a combination of extracurricular and co-curricular activities. So key takeaways, it shouldn't be, oh, 9 to 5, I went to school, 9 to 5, I went to college. I haven't done anything else. So, doing more, having something else other than your normal academics will definitely help you, be it extracurricular or be it co-curricular, right? So quickly summarizing, what are all the different things required? Academic excellence, certifications, internships, creativity skills, how participating in college events and a whole bunch of other activities. Leadership, again, I already told you that they look heavily into community service. The other aspect they look heavily into is the leadership. Taking up leadership positions becomes very, very important, right? And community service, social impact. So please make note of this. So these are across these 5 areas, you need to really make sure that you have an exceptionally strong profile. So what makes a strong profile? Solid work in these 5 aspects makes a very strong profile. Academic excellence, certifications, internships, projects, creativity, leadership, and social impact. Now, sometimes students say, oh, but we have poor academic grades, right? My percentage is low, or, I had like 1 or 2 backlogs. So is it going to hurt my chances? What exactly is going to happen in that? You don't have to worry. So we can't change the past, but we can definitely plan further course of action better. So if you have slightly poor academic performance, you can compensate by getting a higher score on the standardized tests, be it GMAT or GRE. Do certifications, diplomas, and there are also courses that's offered by top universities on platforms such as Coursera, edX, Udemy, etc. So obviously you do the paid ones, you are given a certificate. And when you submit your application to the business schools for whichever program you're applying, you can include it. And that is going to considerably strengthen your application for sure. So these are some of the ways where you can compensate for a below average academic performance. So as I told you already, different universities have different applications. So you need to submit individual applications to individual universities. So each university will have 1 to 3 essays. Why are you applying to this program? What are your short-term goals, long-term goals? Tell us about a time you had leadership, experience, etc., etc. And most universities require 2 letters of recommendation. Some of them require 3 letters of recommendation. So we always ask students to keep 3 letters of recommendations ready. So from whom should you get your letters of recommendation? From your college instructors, so from your college professors. And if you have done an internship from somewhere, you can also get one related to your internship or any work experience related. So this will also help. Work ex related, depending on how well you performed, you can get a letter of recommendation. So it varies by university, but we generally tell students to keep 3 letters of recommendations ready. Very important, scholarships. So the broader term is called financial aid, right? So it's just a combination of mix. It's a mix of grants, scholarships, loans, and on-campus jobs, right? Now, so students ask 2 questions. The first one, how do they decide on scholarships? Now, as I told you, I'm repeating this. Scholarships are also given on the basis of the overall strength and quality of your application. So they are based on your extracurricular, co-curricular, your essays, your undergraduation performance, your GMAT, GRE score. So they do it on the basis of the overall strength and quality of your application. Now, so that's very straightforward. The second question is, how much scholarship will I get? So that's a slightly tricky question to answer, because a student can get anywhere from a 5% scholarship to a 100% scholarship. So again, it's very difficult to say that number exactly. Now, the highest form of scholarship, the most prestigious form of scholarship is called a fellowship. So in a fellowship, you get 100% fee waiver, plus you also get a monthly stipend that takes care of your living expenses. All right. Now, there are also other opportunities. So you help some professor in teaching and doubt clarification. That's called a teaching assistantship. So you have to work 10 to 20 hours per week. You help your professor in research. That's called a research assistantship. Again, there's a 10-hour commitment or a 20-hour commitment per week. There are other kinds of jobs that you can do in different departments of your university. That can also be 10 hours, 20 hours. So for all this, you get a fee waiver, plus you also get a monthly stipend. So even if you don't get some kind of a scholarship or something from India, you don't have to worry. You don't have to worry. You can always go there and look. So Indian students always keep looking for ways of saving money, ways of earning. So, something or the other you will get on campus. So by the time that first semester is over, they figure some, employment opportunity, part-time employment opportunity. So you can work 20 hours per week, because 40 hours is considered full-time. So you can work 20 hours per week. So that's part-time. And as I told you, you get a summer break. So you can do, it's usually 2 to 3 months. About 10 to 12 weeks. This again is a great opportunity for you to get some, hands-on experience in the real world. And you also get paid. So that's very good. And very important, if you do a good job, if you impress the company, they can convert an internship offer into a full-time offer. So that's a huge, huge plus, right? Now, apart from university scholarships, there are also a few external scholarships. Like they have their own requirements, their own applications, etc. For example, there is a Forte Foundation Scholarship for Women. There is Fulbright Scholarship for US, those who are going to the US. Commonwealth Scholarship for students applying to the UK. Eiffel Scholarship for those who are going to France. There is Dhirubhai Ambani Scholarship. There's the Bill Gates, Melinda Gates scholarship. So there are quite a few opportunities, not just university scholarships and opportunities in and around the university, but there are also external scholarships. So it's very important for you to start early and research all these things and keep it, right? Because, the process is quite elaborate. It's pretty exhaustive. So the sooner you start, you get a head start. Okay, so that would be it from my side. So Vaibhav, do you want to add anything else?
No, that's fine.
Yeah, so I just wanted to quickly check, we can go for the Q&A session. So Dr. Syed, so we can go for the Q&A if any students have any questions.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We can.
Yeah, they can just type it out in the chat box. We are very happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, so thank you so much, sir, for your words of wisdom and sharing your valuable views with us. I hope this session was very much helpful for all our participants. Now, participants, we can have some questions or queries that you might have to ask with the sir. So you can drop down questions in the chat box also, or you can ask them also by raising your hand.
So please feel free to type away your questions in the chat box.
So meanwhile, the students have sent me some of their queries.
Please tell me, madam.
Yeah.
Please.
So one question is there that what are the scholarships for students who want to study abroad, and how the students can deal with the expenses like living, tuition fees, and others in the foreign when they are living
Right.
along with their education.
So as I told you here, so how do you fund? It's through combination of scholarships, on-campus jobs and loans, right? So first of all, it's very important to target the right universities depending on your budget, because this is another question that keeps coming up. How much will it cost? Correct. So it can cost if you get 100% scholarship, for example, the cost will be zero, or it can go depending on the program, it can keep going. So it's very important to have the right application strategy, which is to target the right schools. Now, how you fund it? It's through a combination of, scholarships, assistantships, loans, and on-campus jobs.
So there is one more question that which countries does not require any job experience for MBA?
As I told you, the early entry MBA programs, or in your case, if you want to go directly, there are direct entry programs all across the world. So it's not very country specific. So it's very program specific.
Okay. So one last question which I have got from the students right now is, which best country should we consider for AMTech other than the Germany for mechanical engineering program?
So you can definitely look at US and Canada, because US continues to be, so the US economy is 22 trillion. So US continues to be, the biggest economy, right? And Canada benefits a lot by being adjacent to the US. So definitely you can look at, US and Canada.
Students, I think so. I have received all your questions until now, what I've got, and we look like
One question is in chat box.
Yeah, there are a couple of questions in the chat box. I'll quickly take it.
Yeah.
So we have Ranmeet Kaur, who says, I'm a BBA student planning for MBA in my final year. Only one semester is left. I have internship, but not job experience. Getting into an early entry program might be difficult for you because you are very close to graduating. So you may want to, work for a couple of years and then go for the traditional MBA program. So that is what I will recommend, because if you're in your, if you're about to graduate in the next 6 months, then probably applying for an early entry program might be a little too late, because ideally you should do this in your 4th or at the start of your 5th semester. So now it will be a touch late. So yes, so you can work for a couple of years and then go for a traditional MBA. So there's one more here. I believe the name is, I'm not too sure. The name is Arch. So where can I do summer internships? Anywhere, any company. It could be an IT company.
Sir, one more question is from Nitya. Is CMAT and GMAT are same?
Oh, GMAT is completely different. I'm not sure what CMAT is, but GMAT is completely different. So there's Kaustub, I believe, who asks, I wanted to know which country is best for MS/IM. I'm not too sure what it is. Seems pretty generic. So if you can give me, slightly more specific question, I'll be very happy to respond. Now, Rahul, Keshav asks, is GMAT mandatory for study abroad? Not at all, not at all. So again, that's very university specific and country specific. Absolutely. All right, so we have one more question. Online classes has affected the education. What is the best way to cope with it? And improve the profile. So now, because of this COVID, a lot of internships are also getting done remotely. So in fact, we have tons of our students who do remote internships. So there is no need for you to physically go. Make sure you have a good CGPA and, try to do a couple of online internships, because a lot of things right now today are done online. So there is absolutely no need for you to physically go. Now, if you can go somewhere physically and do, that would be great.
So there is one more question from Aviji Joshi, that he wanted to join Sheridan University, Ontario, Canada. So what course could be better choice for MBA? I think so, sir. He had not correctly messaged it. I think so. What I can understand is which exam should he give for the admission in Ontario, Canada University? That is IELTS or GRE?
Okay, so I will strongly, so A, it depends on the program, and B, I strongly, because I don't know the university's requirement. So, we can probably, Vaibhav can probably look at the university's requirement and get back to you, because it's I need to check what program and what their specific entry requirements are. Now, in general, for management related programs, you will have to take the GMAT and you need to have the TOEFL or IELTS. But again, there are differences there also. There are universities where you can apply without a GMAT score. So I'm not sure what the requirements of this Sheridan University is. So, we'll be happy to, have a look and get back to you.
So one more question. So which country should we prefer for Masters in Business Analytics program, and what additional preparations we require for it?
So we call it the MSBA, Master of Science in Business Analytics. So again, anything computer IT related, the US continues to be very big, but there are also options opening up in Europe. So in MS Business Analytics, you work a lot with SAS, SPSS, Tableau, SQL, whole bunch of these tools. So it would be great if you can do certifications and courses in these tools, so that you are a lot more confident and a lot more comfortable. And that would be the additional preparation that is going to help you not only with admissions, but also with scholarships. Absolutely. So we have a question from which semester do we start doing an internship? I would say start right from your first year. If you can do some part-time or summer, summer will be between the first year and second year. That will be, absolutely, helpful, because more internships you do internships across multiple years. It's going to, definitely, strengthen your profile. Absolutely. So there is a BCom student who asks, I'm a BCom student planning to do CS50 and AI. Will it be beneficial? So that depends on what masters you want to go for, right? So this is the entire building your profile and building your application, toward whatever you want to go for. So BCom student, if you want to build your career in AI, understand that there is a lot of competitions from people who are a B Tech, computer science. So you got to be, ready to take on that competition. Yes. So what I'll do is, Vaibhav, are you there?
Yes.
Yeah, Vaibhav. I think students can get in touch with you, right? If they have any questions.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So, students, if you have any more questions, please do get in touch with us. So the email ID is vaibhav.lalge, LALGE at, jamboreeindia.com. I hope you can see it on the screen. So there are also helpline numbers 7415846464 and 965850 So please do get in touch with us. I'm sure all of you have many questions. So, we are very happy to help. Kind of sorry because we can't take all questions because of limited time. So please do get in touch with us. So, as was said in the introduction, time doesn't wait for anyone. So it's your career, it's your future. My request will be to, start preparing, because study abroad is not for everyone. But those who intend to go abroad, please make sure you have the right information. You talk to the right experts, because this is extremely important. What you do when you're 20, 21, 22 is going to lay the foundation for, what you would be doing when you are like 25, 30 years old. So the next 2 to 3 years is extremely, crucial for you students in terms of building your profile. So thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity. Please do get in touch with us. We are extremely happy to, take your queries and assist you, on a one-on-one basis. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Syed.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much, Shreyas sir, and thank you everyone, all the participants, for being a part of this session. And here we are concluding the session, wishing you all a great day ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Shreyas, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you all.